Hello, how are you?
Hi, I'm so sorry that I'm late.
That's
It's been
okay.
very real. I really appreciate your patience.
That's okay, no problem. I was like, 5 a.m. is insane. So I
Yeah,
totally
I
understand.
can't lie. I was struggling. It was real hard, but I made it. So
Yes, you did. You rocked up, and that's all we need.
thank you so much.
That's all right. No stress. How are the previous shows? Because I guess you've just been doing a couple across Europe, right?
Yeah, I've been doing a mixture of festivals and headlining shows.
Amazing.
So yeah, it's been great, honestly. All the festivals have been really warm reception and yeah, and the headlining shows have also been really beautiful. Yeah, I don't know. I'm having a great time on tour. It's good.
Perfect. I wondered why this particular show in Australia, this exclusive, that's how it was pitched in the beginning, for Now or Never, was something that got you all the way onto this side of the world. How did that all come about?
Um, yeah, I mean, I think it was earlier this year. I've never been to Australia in at this time of year. Like I literally don't
Oh,
know what it's like to be cold here. Um, so yeah, I was I didn't initially plan on coming over here, but when I got this offer for the festival, I was like, I really would just love to just touch the other parts and also make sure Tokyo's involved. I've never done a headlining show in Tokyo. I've played there
oh,
several times, but I've never actually seen what like just my audience looks like.
oh.
And so, yeah, I was just very excited to sort of build something around it. So,
That's
yeah.
interesting that yeah, that's a really interesting observation to be like, what does just my audience look like? Why does that intrigue you so much?
I guess because, the culture of festivals, I think has it hasn't taken over completely, but I think there's a way that it's changed people's experience of live music.
Mm,
And for a lot of people, I think it replaces the headlining show experience. So I think people are maybe processing it in a way that's like, I'm gonna get many different headlining shows. And the reality is like a lot of us, for those people who their set is a turn up no matter what, it doesn't matter. You probably are seeing what they give individually as, just when they do a headlining show. But for those of us who are doing both turn up and very intimate vibes and feels. Um, yeah, there's a way that it's harder unless you're a headliner. It's harder to pull off an intimate festival set.
yeah, that totally makes sense. I feel like I probably deliberately choose acts based on how rowdy I could probably get in a festival setting.
Exactly.
Yeah, so
You're trying
yeah,
to turn up. You're not like really trying to like
lean
have a
in.
sexy moment. It's not really like, at least for the most part, if it happens, you're like, ooh, that was nice.
Mm.
But you kind of are looking for a general turn up. So that's kind of how I've always thought about that experience. And I love that experience for myself as well. But yeah, when you are going to just see that person and an opener that they chose, that they've curated like a whole night for, it is a different experience. And so, yeah, it's not just different for the audience, it's different for me. I feel like I have way more permission to just kind of
Mm.
try things out, experiment. And I'll say that even with my festival sets, I am experimenting probably a lot more than, some of my peers in terms of just doing an edit. I'm doing a remix. Pretty much every song it has some sort of edit remix component.
I wanted
So
to discuss looking at how you sort of wrote this album. I thought one of the interesting parts of the process around it was what some journalists have described as a bit of a manifesto, where you piece together pieces of film and art and podcast clips and readings, really intentional stuff to then hand on to your mates and potential collaborators to see how how on the same wavelength you are, I guess. But tell me how people respond when you first pass that on to them.
Well, I think that it's kind of like telephone. It's gone a little bit, just it's not actually like I didn't send this. I've been calling it a primer
Primer, cool.
because I feel like a manifesto does make sense to share with friends, but a primer makes sense to share with people you work with. And it was meant to be homework for, the non-Black people that have to advocate for me in the music business. And just trying to be clear about where my own sort of ethos and the come from of this record, like where that's stemming from, what's the experience that is, that lies behind all of the messaging and the feels in the music. I was kind of like, it's not enough that you're vibing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I need you to vibe with why I wrote this. Like, that's way more important to me than you being like, well, these sonics.
Mm.
I mean, the production, and like that's kind of a default setting in terms of the cosign that you get, as especially in dance music and electronic music. Those are like legitimizing tick, the boxes that you want to tick. But I think for me, a discussion around why all of this, I think was really important because it did orient everyone that I'm working with at the label, and all my other advocates. I have many people that I'm working with, and it made me feel less dissonant, I think, and also have to explain less. I'm like, if you refer to the primer,
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying it's giving 3/4 of the way down, you're going to find a link. After you've watched that video, let's have a conversation.
It's such a solid way to reserve your emotional energy.
Period. Say that.
Yeah.
Literally, I found, I think Black people, especially Black people who grew up around and sort of immersed in whiteness and white culture, I think there's a way that we inherently would never have made it through. We would never be doing what we're doing right now if we
Mm-hmm.
didn't know how to coddle, if we didn't know how to do that labor naturally. And so I think it's really important, I could go on and on about the music. Like, don't get it twisted. The music is chock full of uh elements that I potentially put there. I could go on and on about just the sonic experience someone's having, and I love doing that. But it feels dissonant when I don't think that the person I'm speaking to is clear about like the politic that comes behind that. And for a lot of us, the labor of explaining all the time is just natural, intuitive. It's just what we've had to always
Mm.
do. So we just keep doing it. But I noticed, a part of the break, was just that my album took longer than I thought it was going to take. Like, it's really not that deep all the time. But, I took that moment to be like, how could I just make the labor that I do art labor and kind of not do this part so much? And I started putting these links and readings together, and my manager at the time was like, you're basically putting together a primer. And I was like, what's a primer? I was like, it's kind of like a syllabus, like if you want to work with me. And she was like, that's what a primer is. Basically the homework for the job. And I was like, love that concept. And we're going crazy because I'm including videos. It's going to be YouTube. Go to this marker. You know what I'm saying? It's like, go to this specific part. When you read this book, start with chapter 10. White people, read this first. Black people, you know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
I was being very specific. And I would say my primer, she just keeps expanding. But it is good for it's a liberatory text for me. That's the main sort of thing. But if something is liberatory for a marginalized Black person, it's definitely going to be liberatory for a lot of other people, you know? Um, and that's why it's really important for us to read stories and literature from people who are more marginalized than us, because it helps us understand where those markers really are, you know? So yeah, that's kind of the story behind that manifesto, I guess. Yeah, it's also a manifesto, but yeah, it was less written. I would say manifesto is more something that you're like writing. It's like the text that you synthesize from all of that text. But I didn't feel like doing even that. I mean, I had written letters, I wrote letters to my advocates. And in those letters, I did all that labor. I broke down, how am I marginalized? How are you not helping? Like, where are the places that you could actually step in to make this less torturous for me, But I think that this part was really a primer. It was like homework.
Tell me about some other people that were a lot easier to sort of get on board. So a lot of friends within your own community and within the music world. One of the most interesting ones that I did pick up on that I wanted some clarification on was Geneva Ellis. Because she's a visual person, like she's a visual artist. How did she get a credit on Raven?
Geneva is one of my best friends in the world. And we spent a lot of time during the pandemic and the uprising having conversations about, I mean, we've been in a continuous conversation, but she and I became closer, and I think began to just theorize so much about what was happening, and what's happening specifically for those of us who are in the creative industries. And just whiteness is part of the job, like dealing with it, and dealing with our own internalized racism is also part of the gig. So there's just a way that she and I have different experience, but come together. Just the commentary, I will say that I've thought about making a show, I've been like, girl, because there was a period where we took a class with another artist called Candace Williams, who is brilliant. She taught a class called White Dissonance and Horror. And the text, I mean, just the text and the films pair together. Just kind of, it's truly mind-blowing to sort of think about the ways that like chaotic white shit is embedded in horror, and how it's a site for just like my wildest thoughts and unadulterated, you know what I'm saying? I guess, like, I don't know, art. And so, yeah, but from this activity, we would just be like watching this horror films, and we would be watching it on Zoom, and like sort of the commentaries. Then I started having my other friends join. So it was like a bunch of Black women watching horror films, and just the live commentary of like, wait, pause it. What is that? What was that? There were so many moments that we would be vibing. And I was writing my record at the same time. So with this record, I really wanted it to be, I just wanted to emanate from me as much as possible. So I always like kind of took my first stab at all the lyrics for the whole thing. And then there were 2 or 3 friends that I would be like, is this silly?